One thing we know about people is that they can be difficult, sometimes really difficult, especially people that you live and work with. So how do we deal with difficult people? That's what we're talking about in this video. Hey, welcome back. Leslie Huddart here. I'm an acupuncturist, healer, and spiritual guide, and I help sensitive people release the trauma trapped in their body without years more of therapy or talking about it in your mind by really getting down to the wiring of the subtle body, the components, technical components of the mind-body system. And as we go through healing processes, what happens is that we heal in ourselves, and then we realize that one, we're not in a vacuum, and we actually need that bridge of how to deal with people on the outside. And one of the biggest topics, and this question came from someone in our community, Leslie, I've made so many changes from subtle body work. I'm making twice as much at my job. So many things in life are so much better. And I noticed this pattern about myself that I still get triggered by difficult people. I see myself reacting in the moment and it's not good for me or for them. So in this video, we're going to go over really 4 key steps to really transform your ability to be free and less affected, even while other people are still kind of being wounded jerks. And this is important because we are suffering. We're suffering in ourselves. And if you're watching this video, you're probably head and shoulders above the average person who has yet to come to the realization that they are the common denominator of their experience. This is just the way of the world, of the outer world. And so we need to be equipped as striving, heart-aligned people to not just help ourselves, but in a grounded, we would say 50% line, appropriate way in subtle body work to extend that, radiate that grounded safety to other people without being a doormat, while still getting our needs met and serving other people while still not throwing ourselves under the bus. So number 1 key here is to make a mind shift. And that is that always the biggest problem of a situation with a difficult person, the most important solution is myself. Because if someone is a difficult person for me, now yes, some people are just difficult. It's true. They've got wounding, they've got personality aspects, they're hard to deal with. But if I'm in a situation where I'm worried about losing sleep, getting sucked into the whirlpool with the difficult person, the most important, 51% important thing to deal with is the Velcro in myself. And that must be dealt with because subtle body, tenet, and rule, it's never about what it's about. And number 2, tenet, life is coming from me, not at me. So this is a whole area that we deal with in the Body Wisdom Academy and subtle body training. You have to be able to find out actually in you, where is the Velcro that negative person's sticking to the most, that is taking their crappy negativity and turning into both of your suffering. That's in you. So that mind shift, and it doesn't mean that the person isn't a major cause in the problem. But if I'm getting triggered, there's always 51% of my attention that needs to be focused in me. And you can know that you're getting traction in this area when you can think about the person, think about the issue that happened, pull up their crappy ass behavior in your mind, and it triggers you. You really feel into then how much does it trigger me? And it's still less than like a 3 or 4 out of 10. If you're anywhere 5 or over, that's enough Velcro in your thing, in your body, in your system, that you need to deal with that first, because this is very practical, because that's what will help you stay functional in the moment. And the rest of the things that I can give you, if you are so triggered by something that you go from 0 to 10 in 2 seconds flat when something happens, you're not going to stay functional or apply these techniques. So the mind shift is the most important here. Not what you want to hear. Nobody wants to hear that we are the source of our experience, but that's really important. Step number 2, as much as you can, you want to think about strategic prevention. Now, this is not always easy or possible, but let's think about the situations in which it is. If you know that someone is a difficult person, obviously if we're even having this conversation, there's some way that you're linked in with them. You work with them, you can't avoid them at the office, but I want you to think about doing what you can to set up not getting yourself stuck in that situation. Those can be things like setting up expectations in advance. Hey, just want to know, I know we're having that meeting tomorrow. I'd like to go over an XYZ first. Is that amenable to you? If it's a family member, planning things in advance, talking with that difficult person or with other people, family members involved in the situation, and letting your preferences be known. Hey, I know that difficult person, sibling A, always, needs to have these things in that certain way that doesn't work for me and everybody else. So I'm going to do as much as I can, not to uber control the situation, which is never really possible, but I'm going to make my ideas and my preference known and maybe have everybody decide to have it at a different venue or to do things in a certain way that will minimize the difficult person's ability to control the situation. If you're at a family dinner and part of the difficulty of that person is that when everybody's seated at the table, they control the conversation and sort of hold everybody hostage awkwardly at the dinner table. Maybe you preemptively prevent and you try a new family tradition where people sit at small tables, or you do something that's out of the box. There's always 5 different ways that we haven't thought about that you can do things differently that will minimize the suffering of that person from being contagious. This is not always possible, but it's a good thing to run through your mind because often we don't think about changing the situation, the venue, communicating in advance to that difficult person or to anybody else to do this. I had an ex-boyfriend who was really good at doing this on Craigslist. He would sell a lot of things, was a musician, and didn't really like to haggle with people. So instead of getting caught with the difficulty of someone coming in, they're in your house, they've got the thing in your hand, and they're like, well, you will take this crazy low price for it. Instead, in advance, I heard him over the phone and, hey, I'm really set on this price. Does that work for you? And he would get a response from that person in advance. So he was managing that situation in that way to preemptively prevent a difficult situation later on. So there's a lot that can happen here. I want you to open your brain and analyze the situation if there's anything you can do. Number 3, and this is a huge one, maybe one of the biggest, is your initial reaction. Where most of us get stuck with difficult people is, especially if you're a bit of a truth teller or a bit of a boss lady or a bit of a tell them like it is, we can get stuck in that initial reaction where the shit just comes out of our mouth before we even realize it, and then we have escalated the situation. So, although other people are sometimes very difficult, we need to train and manage in ourselves to work ourselves out of initial reaction. And the way that we do this is very practical. We practice ahead of time, and we practice doing a filler. We train ourselves when something comes up, we train ourselves to go, interesting. So you can sometimes train yourself to do a little namaste, clasp the hands in front of you. This is also helpful to sort of put a little space between you and the other person, gives yourself sort of a tactile reset of interesting. So I want you to practice in the mirror saying things like, interesting. Then you go to something like, I want to make sure that I'm understanding you right. I want to make sure that I'm tracking with what you just said. So this combo of space filler and getting comprehension. Yes, you may have heard directly what that jerk just said with their crazy idea that is stabbing everybody in the back at the workplace. But instead of going, you backstabbing, you go, interesting. You can also add in a little bit here, an appropriate share from yourself, something that's kind of neutral of oh, I'm surprised to hear you say that. Oh, that wasn't what I was expecting. Okay, then you go to, I want to make sure I'm understanding. Now, even if you're 99% sure what you just heard that jerk say, you're still going to say this, partly because it adds to your filler. It keeps what you're doing internally is staying with yourself, using all of your inner subtle body tools, staying with yourself, and you're giving yourself some time, but now you're also kind of tossing the ball back to them. This leads us to number 4, energetic communication. Now, energetic communication is a very specific word we use that is created and attached with subtle body work, but essentially what we're going for is using various words that are connected with the energy between people of what's happening underneath. And so the first tip that you can do here, energetic communication is very wide, and we train deeply in this over the course of the Body Wisdom Academy. But in terms of things you can use right away, you've started from your initial reaction. Oh, interesting. I'm a little surprised to hear you say that. That's not what I was expecting. I want to make sure I'm hearing you correctly. So now we've shifted to number 4, 4A, which is require a response from them. So instead of them being in the power position of like, bam, now you're reactive and I'm going to escape from the scene before I can have any consequences, you sort of hold them there and you get them to share more. And often when that happens, sometimes it will bring out the delusion behind what they think is actually a good idea. Sometimes people will contradict themselves. Sometimes they'll get nervous. It gives a lot of time and it sort of brings their 50% to light. So some things that you can use there are things like, so you've just finished with, interesting, not what I was expecting. I want to make sure I'm understanding you correctly. Now you've shifted into energetic communication. You require something from them and you're going to say, how were you seeing that was going to work with, inherent problem? How are you going to see that was going to work with everyone's vacation? And then you just press your lips together. Or something like, how are you seeing that go with this? How are you seeing that land with folks when you tell them about it? How are you seeing that work? Just a general, or in general, like, could you share some of your thinking behind that approach that you've just shared? Can you share some of your thinking? Can you tell me how that was going to go? So what this does, one, it gives you some time to just breathe deeply and be like, on the inside, stay connected with yourself. And you do something that's not just about you, you throw it back to the other person and ask them to share what they were thinking. And this is also helpful because sometimes they will share their thinking in a way that will help you get more depth of understanding of where they were coming from. Often, if they are a really difficult person, it will also bring to light how they really weren't thinking about other people or how they don't give a crap about what happens with other people. But this combination of really, one, starting with yourself, making that mind shift and working as best as you can to get out the Velcro in yourself, which is never really about what it's about. Anytime we are triggered by another person, it's because we have some sort of Velcro for it within ourselves. This is what subtle body work and the Body Wisdom Academy help us free ourselves from, because you have to be very specific and it's not always straightforward. That doesn't mean that the person isn't difficult or a jerk or a little bit malicious, but your business is to clean up your Velcro within yourselves, and you will become more skillful as you do that. Number 2, if you can, think about prevention of the situation. How can I minimize in a group setting, in a group geometry, how can I minimize this person's effect on the group? Number 3, really work and train on your initial reaction. A couple times during the day, maybe every time you go to the bathroom, you finish by washing your hands, looking in the mirror and going, interesting. That's not what I was expecting. Number 4, practice those energetic communication stages to keep people talking and to bring out what they were actually thinking. Interesting. Can you share a little bit about what you were thinking, or how were you seeing that work with XYZ where problem areas are? Difficult people are everywhere, and they are a great gift and reflection to help us see where we still got Velcro in ourselves and how we can be more free, because it is a gift to see other people's essential suffering that their wounding is trying to make contagious by being difficult, and instead saying, no, I see you. And there's that, and your crap is on your 50%, and I'm here doing my job. That will minimize. It can't transform other people, but you can help the situation greatly by staying clear in yourself, bringing out and facilitating in a way a better outcome for everyone involved. You are a soul with a body, and these important, practical, subtle body things make a huge difference. If you got some value from this video and you think someone else could benefit, please send it along. I am on a mission to support and inspire as many people as possible to true inner healing, to reduce our own suffering in a way that moves everybody forward. And I can't do it alone. So grateful for you. Thank you for your heart and presence and time in watching these videos. I'll see you next time.